Good evening. The sunset is a disclosure of darkness. The sunset is a disclosure of stars and planets. It is a disclosure of the world's life when it lives at night. The nocturnal animals, as well as the flames, wisps, and orbs. And yet sunset itself is only the first sign, and occurs till the last moment that the sun is visible. Once the disk hides deep enough, the sky says, all is fully revealed, as surely as every saucer hides what is behind it, except for transparent ones, of course. The saucer called the sun hides the whole sky in a veil of blue. You used to just be able to step outside and wait for the sunset and the last light to disappear in the west. But now you have to go to the country because people put lights up everywhere. This makes a different sort of veil, a yellow veil in the night. If there really are unexplained objects in the night sky, people living in the city wouldn't even be able to see them most of the time because of the yellow veil. Is lavender the best? Does Lou Elizondo actually have any relevance at all? What more do I have to say about prairie lights at the moment? Not a whole lot, honestly, but it definitely looks like an interesting avenue of study. Plus, weird weather, but it's because of the climate crisis. All this and more tonight. I'm Rachel Nelson.
I'm Jeff Knox.
Tonight, Louise couldn't make it, unfortunately, but in any case,
we're here.
We are here. Yes, thank you, Jeff. Welcome. And welcome to Ufos Chat, everyone, a chat show about our regular show, Ufo Sunset. And now for the rebrief. Petrels will chase cyclones, according to a new study. On Tuesday, a new study was published in the journal Current Biology that documents petrels purposefully following cyclones. Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute, or WHOI, reported on the paper the same day. The Desertas petrel, Pterodroma deserta, is a seabird with a breeding population of around 200 pairs that nest on Bugio Island, an island of Portugal that sits off the western coast of North Africa. The petrels go on long journeys to forage, crossing the Atlantic Ocean. This new study finds that many petrels will actually chase storms. The wake of a storm provides favorable winds for them to follow, and the storms churn up food for the birds to feed on. As we've now discovered, Desertas petrels follow hurricanes where prey have accumulated closer to the surface in the wakes of storms, unquote, said Caroline Umenhofer, an associate scientist of physical oceanography at the WHOI and one of the paper's authors. Quote, initial studies suggested that seabirds either circumnavigate cyclones or seek refuge in the calm eye of the storm. However, the Desertas petrels we tracked did neither. Instead, 1/3 of them followed the cyclone for days, covering thousands of kilometers. When we saw the data, we nearly fell off our chairs. This is the first time we have observed this behavior, unquote, said lead author and a postdoc investigator in biology at WHOI. Fernando Ventura, I believe that's the name. Sorry. Okay. The Earth's weather is getting weirder due to climate change. There have been several items published this week specifically concerned with the weather becoming weirder due to climate change. In a piece published today on space.com, contributor Daisy Dobrievic interviewed climate scientist Catherine Cahoe. Because the global average temperature is rising, this means that heat waves are increasing in their intensity, there's increased storm activity, and there's a greater frequency and intensity of thunderstorms and lightning, as well as an increase in wildfires. Cahoe is quoted as saying, quote, "Each of us, wherever we live, are experiencing the impacts of climate change today," unquote. Another article on this quote-unquote global weirding of weather was published on Thursday in Salon. In it, a climatologist and deputy lead scientist at the NASA Snow and Ice Data Center, Dr. Twila Moon, was quoted as saying, quote, "Along with this warming, we see increases in deadly heat waves and droughts, but also an increased experience of global weirding," unquote. She described global weirding as, quote, "more extreme weather events producing conditions that are entirely new for communities, weather whiplash as folks may experience quick swings between hot and cold or drought and flood, and many challenges for crops, wildlife, recreation, and being able to plan for what we previously considered normal weather conditions," unquote. This image by Cranston Herald contributor Pam Schiff documents some of the damage from a microburst that happened on June 26th in Cranston, Rhode Island. The localized storm reportedly affected, quote, "a tiny part of the neighborhood on Marin and Beckwith Streets," unquote, according to Schiff. A giant dust devil was shot on video in Rapid City, South Dakota. One moment, please. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. On Wednesday, a tall and broad dust devil was caught on video near a parking lot in Medards in Rapid City. This is in the Black Hills region of South Dakota. The video was shot by Jocelyn Jensen and reported by KNBN News Center 1, a TV station serving the Black Hills. From the article by Trevin Dowling and Brant Beckman, quote, "The temperature differential between the relatively cool grass and the hot asphalt of the Menards parking lot likely contributed to the creation of the dust devil seen on Wednesday," unquote.
It's a pretty cool dust devil.
Yeah, it's pretty big.
It should have been a fire, though. Fire tornadoes are better.
Fire spout.
Fire spouts.
They're definitely cooler looking.
Mm-hmm. Very cool.
Probably not too fun to be around. Not the best company at a party.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of smaller dust devils before, like just in Eastern Oregon and driving through places like, New Mexico and the deserts and whatnot. Big one.
Really?
Well,
You're having a little trouble, or maybe I'm having trouble. I'm not sure, but you keep
Am I having
glitching.
trouble, or are you having trouble?
I don't know, but yeah, I think that it was probably on your end, but you were cutting out quite a bit. But
Weird.
you seem to be doing fine now, though.
Okay. Well, I will try and go ahead and give my update now then. Hopefully I don't cut out.
Okay, cool.
Sounds good. All right. We'll do this here. All right. So when I had talked about this case last week, there was a couple of things I didn't mention and that I didn't include, and a couple of things I also kind of got wrong. First of all, again, I always started these presentations off mentioning how I'm probably going to mispronounce names and stuff. And I noticed I completely mispronounced Amy Michelle's name throughout the entire lecture. I kept pronouncing it Michael. And I apologize for stuff like that. The I want as location of this, and I kind of glossed over it, I guess, last week briefly, and just kind of showed this map that was sketched by the gendarmes, which honestly does not help a whole lot, simply because many of these roads are not here anymore. This kind of I don't know if you call it like an S-shaped or kind of a turn here. This Kiminditaze does not exist anymore. So when you end up looking at satellite maps and more recent maps, it's kind of hard to tell where it is. And I had mentioned that they had built a landmark out there that I thought was not exactly near where the landing location was. It turns out it actually might be a bit closer than I thought it was. So this is the map, the sketch of the kind of location that we had from the gendarmes. And if you were to pull up it on satellite imagery today, this is the area you get. And you can see that waypoint mark there that says Valensole's ET. And that's kind of supposed to indicate where they put this kind of model of the in the. But you really sure which and how, in fact, buildings.
You're cutting up again, so you might want to just repeat what you had said previously.
Oh, is it me cutting up? I saw you cut out. I don't know who it is.
I don't know. I mean, it's not. I don't really know how that works.
Yeah. Huh. Okay. Well, anyway, so you can't. It's really hard to tell where it is on this map. I wasn't sure how close it was. You could kind of, if you zoom in, you can see some abandoned structures. And I had thought it was one of those 3 abandoned structures. It turns out I was actually completely wrong. The abandoned house that they speak of is sort of in the middle here, is that really dark spot. I can't really point it out, I guess. But you'll see in a second here where this house is. And you can't see that S-shaped turn, like I said, because that road is not there anymore. So I was able to get, through the help of Michael Valiant, through UP Check, a KMZ file for Google Earth, as well as some satellite imagery that was taken 2 years later. And then and so you see location or the mentioned hillock that when he first had the sighting that he was kind of taking a smoke behind of was where this vineyard was that you can no longer see in modern maps, and where this craft landed and these trace events were. And if we look a little bit closer here in this 1967 image, we can see that kind of S-shaped curve. And that's that house that we can see still in the modern day images. down there in the bottom kind of left. And we can see that vineyard that used to be there that he cut across, in the path that he cut across to get to this UFO. And we can even, and what I did is I took that map from the gendarmes and I kind of resized it, twisted it around, laid it on top of this satellite imagery. And you can, or not satellite, but aerial photography. And you can see that it's a pretty decent match to what they sketched out as to where this object landed and where Moss is pointed out as standing. And again, here is a little bit kind of more zoomed out. You can see that the hillock, and roughly 7 meters in front. You have the D6 right through with the vineyard, right next to where this land built is. It's on this D6A, and it's real close, real nearby to where this actually happened. And like I say, you can kind of see the D6A cuts through there. And this is a picture taken from kind of a street view image on Google Earth of the model that they have there now. So it's a bit different than the one I showed in the presentation with the green characters. This one looks like it's a bit more stable and permanent of a structure that they kind of build out there. And this is another view kind of looking from the other way. And these kind of these piles that you can see here, these are those hillocks that he was taking as kind of a smoke break behind, that he walked around in front of to see the object landed over here. So that should give you kind of a better idea of where this kind of event happened. So it is fairly close to where they marked it on the map and where they put up that kind of structure there. And like I said, I'd like to thank Michael Valant for that and helping me figure out the exact location of where it happened. I also just wanted to briefly mention when I was kind of looking into this case, I discovered that some people were using one of the Valensole sketches to represent a type of creature that is kind of found in Inuit and Eskimo legends. And this creature, this entity was described by this Dr. Henry Rink. And Henry Rink was a Danish geologist. He's considered kind of one of the, I guess, the founders of glaciology, and was one of the first people to kind of map the glaciers on Greenland. And when he was doing this, he was kind of doing an ethnographic study of kind of like folklore traditions and legends and stuff of the people in the regions. And he put out this book in one place in 1866. I haven't seen it published before 1875, 1876. And this book called The Tales and Traditions of the Eskimo, with a sketch of their habits, religion, language, and other peculiarities. And in this book, he talks about these creatures, the Inrualakat, and they're called, they're basically a kind of a dwarf, and these dwarfs possess a shooting weapon in which they're able to point at a creature by merely aiming or pointing at it. And this is the Valensole image you may recognize from the presentation. And this is an image I found attached to a description of what they're calling this cryptid or whatever on the internet. And the internet has already taken to calling these Inrualakats as being aliens, actually. So there's already a bit of rewriting history going on there. But anyways, it's very fascinating. These creatures have this weapon that they're able to point, and it'll basically kill a creature just by pointing at it. And later on in the book, he kind of, when he's relating the tale of these Inrualakats, he kind of describes the weapon a bit more. And it's a weapon that apparently it's fashioned out of this willow, this tree that they find that kind of looks like a person. And from one of its roots, he says, they made a weapon not larger in size than a closed fist, shaped like a pistol. At the end, they put a little black stone with a little red one on top of it. This instrument, when finished, they named the pointing weapon. And knowing and fearing its killing powers for their own kith and kin, they are always said to carry it in their one hand. And these Inwarlula cats, I'm butchering that name, I'm sure, as well. Supposedly also go on to, in their travels, they meet these kind of these other kind of entities that they say they look like humans, but they're kind of short, but they kind of have dog-like, almost kind of like legs, and they carry these bow and arrows that they and these weapons, these pointing weapons that they can point and shoot things at. And they say they met with these singular beings whose upper limbs were shaped like human beings, but below they were shaped like dogs. These creatures were armed with bows and, dreadful to behold, could catch the scent of a man and beast against the wind like an animal. One winter they covered the whole inside of their abode underground with a single skin, that of a large beast called a kilafek, the one with 6 legs. The story goes that when they had eaten the flesh of the animal, the bones were covered anew with the flesh, but only up to the 6th time. And remember this, because this actually also comes into kind of like their life cycle, these entities' life cycles, and how they live to be really old, as kind of a repeat of this whole 5 or 6 time situation. It says, and despite its strength and size, they killed it with this above mentioned pet weapon merely by pointing at it. So this weapon, could take out any size creature, like small, large. It didn't seem to matter. It was able to completely take out anything just by pointing at it. And apparently they could also somehow kind of warp space, almost like they could pull one location closer to them to travel large distances. As I said, they could diminish the distances from one place to another by drawing the various parts of the country closer. And they performed this by kneeling down together and spreading their arms out towards the mountaintops. But finding some of them too high to spread their arms over, their foremost finger crossed the already contracted parts with one long stride, and the others, one by one, following his tracks. Some of these people would get left behind, like the contraction would happen, I guess, before they could follow, and they'd get left behind. Anyways, they traveled a long ways until they finally reached this land, and they met some more of these they're kind of people. They're the Inwarlula cats, and these creatures had this other kind of interesting feature that kind of is almost kind of Alice in Wonderland like, with the changing in size. And they had these 2 different suits. So they would have these smaller, like kind of fitting suits for their natural kind of small miniature dwarf-like size, but they would carry around a second suit, which was kind of like a larger kind of man-sized outfit. And whenever they needed to like do something like carry heavy loads or needed to be larger, they would put on this suit, and apparently by beating themselves somehow, they would reach this larger human size. I don't know how that works. And a problem with some of these things is, like, these people are telling a story, and this guy that collected these basically admits that his notes were kind of poor, and so there's can be some confusion in parts of these stories. But basically, they supposedly beat themselves. That gets them up to big size, human size, and when they want to get small again, they kind of go to their cave and knock the crown of their head against the top of their cave, and that shrinks them back down to their normal size again. And that's not actually the kind of this kind of legend of a kind of like a stick that you can point at people is found also in other legends, kind of Eskimo and kind of Native people. And in this book by Charles Leland, published in 1884, called The Algonquin Legends of New England, or the Myths and Folklore of the Micmac, the Passamaquoddy, and the Penobscot tribes, he tells this other story of this woman that kind of gets this special stick. And on this cover here, you can kind of see this cool little guy. I guess he's the Micumbwes, which is kind of like supposedly some sort of Indian puck, or kind of a good fellow, kind of like a creature that's kind of got some kind of stick, and he's kind of got this like outfit and whatnot. Anyways, doesn't necessarily relate to this kind of legend here. And there's a lot of legends of little people in like Native American literature and lore and traditions. And he tells this story of this deity Kluskap, which is basically he's kind of like this creator divinity kind of guy that's a trickster kind of god. And there's this woman, and she's had lost her child, and so I guess she was kind of like alone, and this strange boy kind of like comes upon her and decides to start calling her mother and kind of starts treating her as mother. And he's got this kind of special flute that when you play it, like you can call any kind of animal to you. So like they never need food or they need like furs or whatnot. They can call animals with it and then like kill the animal. And but he tells her, don't tell anybody about this kind of like magic pipe of ours, or we'll starve. And he says he got it from some other kind of stranger. And I remember this kind of being is supposed to be Kluskap. And as part of this wider Passamaquoddy legend, where it's actually Kluskap that discovered America, not Christopher Columbus. And it's not that he discovered America, it's that Kluskap discovered England. He traveled the seas in a stone canoe, discovered England, and then went to France. And because of that, that's how they found out about America. And then white man came to America after that. And so it's kind of this reverse legend of how he actually discovered Europe, and that tipped him off to America and created all the people coming here. But so anyways, back to the story here. And so he's got this mother, and one day he's with this mother, his adopted mother, that he's playing along with, and he's making this canoe I'm talking about, and it's this stone canoe. And the mother takes his pipe and blows it, and she gets a deer and a beaver, and she slaughters him, and she collects all these kind of furs and whatnot. And this one beaver has this stick in his mouth, and this stick says one you get this magic stick, you point something at it, and it will die. And so she points it at a deer, and it falls dead. Now, this is an old Eskimo tale, again, greatly modernized. It says that Eskimos believe in a kind of sorcerers or spirits who have these instruments in which they can merely just point at people, and it will kill them. And that's, again, what we see in a lot of these kind of dwarf stories and legends, is that these creatures have these weapons that kind of paralyze you or immobilize or disable you in some way. And I will also say, just kind of briefly, before the chat today, I discovered in Mircea Eliade's book on shamanism, he's got a section here when talking about the shamanic sources of power and how shamans kind of get their power. And he says, in North America, there are also other sources of other of those who have by supernatural aid. The idea of a dwarf who grants power or serves as a guardian spirit is extremely widespread west of the Rocky Mountains. So we have a lot of these stories of these kind of little people and even little green men in Native American and other indigenous folklore from kind of around the world that I thought was really interesting. That kind of seems to match up with some of these kind of humanoid encounters that we see. I just also wanted to, one last thing, point out. I mentioned a case last week that was kind of also rugby ball, described as rugby ball shaped on crutches. And this was a case in Nîmes, France, and it happened on October 14th, 1954. And Nîmes is in the south of France. It's actually about 100 miles to the west of Valensole. And so this case took place a little more than 10 years before this case. And it's
You're cutting up again.
Both? No. I don't know if it's cutting up bad. This is my last slide. Hopefully I can just finish it. It just says a rugby ball on crutches in the sky of Nîmes. After the orange and red gleams accompanied the packs of flying cigars seen by policemen, two residents of the guard, Mr. Dupuis and his wife, saw last night when going back home a few kilometers in the north of Nîmes, greenish gleam in a field. They approached it and noted with all the time they needed the presence of an object entirely identical to that of a rugby ball and appearing to rest on crutches. Suddenly, the strange apparatus rose in the air while emitting a weak noise and gradually taking on an orange color. And so this is another case of an object, rugby ball sized, on crutches in a field, emitting a kind of a whine or a whistling sound and taking off. That happened 100 miles west of Valensole over 10 years before. And, this case isn't really that unique. Are we back? We're back again?
Yeah, you're back. You were gone there for a minute.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's just Comcast or Xfinity or what, because it's, yeah. Sorry about that. I don't think it's my computer because I closed everything down. I'm not even running my TV, and it's not just me. It's cutting out Rachel too. So
yeah, and maybe it's StreamYard or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or it could just all be on my end for all I know right now.
Yeah. Anyway, that's kind of all I had.
Yeah, it's the Men in Black.
That's right. They're trying to shut us down.
Well, I didn't really have anything to add to my story from last time, just because I kind of wanted to take a break before going all in on the Prairie Light rabbit hole.
Yeah.
But there is a bunch more material about that. I don't know specifically if there's. I do want to find out more about the Sand Creek reports from 1913, but like just from the clippings at kufos.org, which I think are those George Eberhard's clippings. I'm not sure, but anyway, there's a bunch of other reports like that from the same time period from Kansas.
Yeah.
In the 1910s. So yeah, it's something I definitely want to learn more about.
I was also I forgot that there's a couple other things I forgot to kind of go over last week that I was going to mention about the Valensole case. Was I didn't talk a whole lot about the actual samples, like if because they took samples from the ground and if there was anything different. I did show a picture where they mentioned the main difference they found was kind of a higher calcium. Cut out again. Anyways, so the other main difference was just that, and I mentioned this in the chat on the kind of the live chat again this week on the replay, was that the difference in what he reported initially, like right after the event to the gendarmerie, and what he reported 6 weeks later in August, Initially, he didn't report anything about being paralyzed or these entities both being on the ground or pointing this weapon at him and paralyzing him. His initial reports were much more basic. He described them as being small, like 8-year-old children, but that only one of the beings was on the ground, one was in the craft. There's nothing about any sort of weapon or paralyzing him or any of the more fantastical element of the story. That was not introduced until 6 weeks later, when he said he finally felt he could tell the full story to the people. So again, you can take from that what you will. Again, maybe he was just kind of nervous about telling the whole story because, as I said, he didn't want to tell the story. And till later, other men, he just kind of made it more normal. And so those were some of the main differences I didn't really get to address, just kind of the evolving nature of the story, the debris samples, and kind of where the case really went. Well, with it cutting out, maybe that's about all we can do today.
Maybe, yeah, I feel like I made some sort of error probably, but I don't remember what it was. I should also mention that Luis has a PhD, so I accidentally referred to him as Mr. Luis Cayetano. I wasn't doing that as a slight against him or anything like that. It was just an error. I should have said Dr. Luis Cayetano.
Is that what he prefers?
I don't know.
Just because you have a PhD, most people don't use doctor in front of their name.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. Is that rude to call a doctor Mr. or something? I don't know.
According to UFO Wikipedia, like people, how dare you in front of the name of yeah, you typically put the PhD part in the actual source reference. That's just style guidelines. Like, but UFO Twitter got mad. Like they're trying to take away Gary Nolan's PhDs and make him seem like he's not a qualified. It's like, no, that's just how. Like, I know you guys have never actually like written papers before or like know what a source is, but that's just how you write a source out, guys. Like, you don't put all those the flattery formal titles like in the source. Like, that's just how it is. And yeah. So, anyway.
Okay. Yeah, that's the only thing that's coming to my mind. I also meant instead of it wasn't Crawfordshire, it was Crawfordsville, Indiana. That
yeah.
Those sightings or those reports from 1891 came from.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think maybe we should just end the show early tonight. As much as I would love to just go on and on about the AAWSAP AATIP thing, no. I actually do want to read that more closely, but I have not had the chance to. I'm really I skimmed through it and I did find it really interesting, and I want to spend more time with it, but it's going to take me a while to really absorb all of that information, I think.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff. All right, sounds good. Well,
yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
We won't have an episode next week because next week's my birthday, so we're postponing it. So it'll be 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
Yeah, and also, this was never actually explicitly stated on the show, but I don't think it was anyway. But Jeff's dog Dorothy passed away, and just after last week's show. Not just right after, but like the following day. So
Yep, she got sick, started getting sick shortly before the episode, and kind of that's why I was clean dog. All right. The Men in Black are shutting us down. They're trying to silence us.
Yeah, well, anyway, I just wanted to offer my condolences.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for all the kind words. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And okay, for our final story tonight, a red sprite was shot on camera from space. Here's a shot of a red sprite taken by Matthew Dominic from the International Space Station on June 3rd. The red sprite is visible as a series of red streaks above the bright blue light, which is actually a lightning storm off the coast of South Africa. Red sprites are a type of temporary luminous event, a massive plasma discharge that occurs in the upper atmosphere. Before we go, if you enjoyed this show, we would like you to please consider subscribing to our channel, Ufo Sunset. Please also hit the like button and hit the notification bell icon if you'd like to get notified about upcoming videos. And come and join our cozy and intimate live chat. A great plus for joining the live chat is that you can give us constructive feedback live on the air, especially if we make any factual errors. You can also join our Discord, a temporary link to which will be found in the episode description as soon as I add it after the show. Now, here at UFOS, our political and personal views are not the same, and the work of each of us is independent work. Personal views or positions expressed in individual pieces are not those of UFOS, who is not a person and has no views, or the other hosts. Please be sure to check out our respective content. I can be found at the Earth YouTube channel. Visit Luis Cayetano's website, ufologyiscorrupt.com, and you can find Jeff Knox's daily posts on history and the science of UFOs on Twitter or Facebook. Jeff Knox spends all of his time studying UFOs, and he makes almost no money off of it. Please consider visiting his Patreon page and becoming his patron. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Luis. We're sorry that you couldn't make it this week. Yep. Also, thank you to Swink McLeod. Yes, plasma is cool. That's a very important fact that everyone needs to know. And in the words of the disc,
is it cool or
you started talking and then you immediately cut out.
Again.
No. What?
All right.
Okay, you're back now. Yeah. After everything that you said, whatever it was, you're back.
Censorship. Censored.
It's those MIB.
Yeah. All right, guys.
In the words of the disc, they're always there, but you can never see them.